Welcome, guys, to Cut the Curve, episode 8, where I interview moguls, mentors, and entrepreneurs. And today I welcome Tino Luna.
Thank you for having me on.
Great to have you here, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yes. So Tino and I have known each other since probably the pandemic, back when I was at Cody Sperber's office. You were working with Pace Morby, and we got a chance to meet out here in Arizona. So Tino's been in the game now since 2018, but the interesting thing is he didn't get his first deal till 2020, but that is a lot of persistence. We were talking about how he stuck to it, and now he's crushing it out here in Arizona. Tino, were you always an entrepreneur, or what was kind of the backstory? I know you mentioned you were an athlete through high school and college.
Yeah, so kind of a short synopsis of like me in a bottle, if you will. Grew up in Los Angeles, played baseball my whole life. Baseball was always a big factor in my life just because, like I said, we come from a humble beginning, and that was kind of my ticket to college. And so ended up going to school, got into Amway. I was recruited by...
in college?
Yeah, I was actually recruited by a baseball player who, I don't know how he got recruited, but I was introduced to Amway and the idea of like bettering yourself and having your own business.
For you guys who don't know what Amway is, it's one of the largest multi-level marketing programs, at least at that time it was. I haven't heard about it now, but it's very much about self-development. And
yes.
And
so I got into the Amway system and started reading books. And before that, I just assumed that I was going to get a nursing degree. And it was a good living. Like I made $70,000 a year. And then I thought that was going to be me until I retired. And then once I saw Amway, I was like, oh, man, there's a whole nother life out there that I never understood.
So you got the nursing degree. You started working as a nurse?
Yeah. So graduated, started working as a nurse. I walked away from the Amway business. I did really well. But there's like different trees within the Amway business, if you will, different sectors. And so the one that I was with, it wasn't too crazy about the way that they were doing things. So I walked away, became a nurse.
Were you making money through Amway?
I was a platinum.
Wow. So is that where you were making $70,000?
I was making residuals like $7,500 a month. And I had a team of like 60 people.
So you, from that experience, Tino, you learned how to build teams and systems?
Yeah, I learned...
Because that's critical in the real estate business, guy. You can't do it on your own.
I learned how to recruit, and I learned to look for personalities that were similar to mine, that were go-getter personalities, right? And so that helps when you start your own business and start recruiting people. But then I became a nurse for 5 years, worked all over, and then I saw a Cody Sperber ad. And... even before I saw that ad, I was...
Were you happy as a nurse?
I was happy, but I just wasn't happy that I didn't control my time.
Gotcha.
So I'm a big family person. At the time, I had one boy. He was like 7, and the idea of having to ask for like time off for holidays, and then also... the money was an issue too. Like I made good money, but it wasn't.
Yeah, because 70 or whatever nurses start. Yeah. I mean, that nurses make.
When I walked away, I was making like $45 an hour, which was pretty good.
Yes, absolutely.
But
it wasn't your fit lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's kind of why I got into real estate, because I wanted to raise my kids, coach them, volunteer at their school.
Yeah.
Now I know you have the 2.5-year-old baby boy. So like, if you're a nurse, you can't say I want to go coach 3 times a week. They'll be like, you have to work.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why I started looking into stuff like crypto. We had money that I poured into crypto and I lost. And so when I ran into real estate...
And this was, when did you see Cody Sperber? If you guys don't know him, he's a longtime friend here in Chandler, and he got in the game early. So he was a master at Facebook and ClickFunnels, and his ads were all over back then, and they're still all over.
Yeah, he's one of the GOATs, as we call him.
Yes.
But, I ended up running into his ad on Facebook, and then... I bought his basic course, which was just like understanding wholesaling. And once I understood it and had a grasp of it, like, oh, I'm really only flipping paper, then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do forever. And I'm going to just figure it out until I do well at it, and I'm not going to change my course at all.
What did you pay for that course?
I think it was like $9.97 or $5.97. It wasn't super expensive. At the time, I thought it was expensive.
Right.
Because I had never paid for coaching or anything like that. So I was like, man, this is a big investment. And I bought it and went through all the modules. And then we did talk a little bit about coaching with Cody. And at the time, it was more expensive than I wanted to pay, or my mindset just wasn't.
Was there some fear there about like investing in yourself, or like trusting Cody as a coach, or like trusting that it's going to work, or what was
100%
kind of holding you back?
I think it's more mental than anything because of my background. Love my parents, are hardworking people. I wouldn't be here without them. But I was instilled with like, don't ever pay people to coach you because it's a scam. And so like, I was hesitant for that reason. Now, looking back 4 years later, I probably should have just paid for it and it would have cut my curve.
Cut the curve.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the time, I was skeptical. So I was like, no, you know what? I'll just go do it myself. And so I went out and knocked doors.
And that was 2018, right?
It was November of 2018.
Okay.
Started knocking doors. And I came close on a few deals. Like I would contract deals, but I wouldn't cash out on them.
Gotcha.
And so I don't know if I was locking them up too high or just didn't have enough buyers.
But you were using his course, that information, and taking out and applying it, which is awesome. But the step I think you were missing, and you could tell me, was that you didn't have anyone backing you, holding you accountable. Like, what happens when this messes up, or what do we do? And
right. I didn't have somebody, and I'm the type of person that, like, if you go and show me the process once, hold me by the hand, I can repeat the process. But I didn't have anybody to actually physically hold my hand. And so that's where I was.
And that's all it takes, guys. That first deal, once you did the first deal, I'm sure it just opened the floodgates.
It was like proof of concept. And then before that.
But you struggled. You struggled for like
18 months.
Dang.
18 months.
But you stuck through it. That's cool.
I did, yeah. And so I had a lot of support from my wife. She's an amazing, my wife, Amber. It was emotional because like I would contract deals and I'd be like, man, I think this is gonna be worth like $10,000-$20,000, and to me back then that was like life-changing money.
For sure.
And so I would come home and I'd be all excited and I'd show her the contract and I'd be like, this is it, babe, like we're gonna make it, and then like that fell through, and then another one fell through. So she was more patient than she probably should have been, but I'm glad.
That's awesome. You had someone at home like, hey, you could do this, like, because that's all we need is someone to believe in us. And sometimes in the beginning you don't believe in yourself. You just don't, whether it's your background, your history. But if someone believes in you, like a coach, like a spouse, it makes life much easier.
Oh, 100%. And that's really what kept me going. And I think a little bit of stubbornness of like, I made a promise to myself when I found out that what wholesaling was at its core, that this was going to be the vehicle that was going to change my life. And so a mixture of support and stubborn and 18 months later.
And then you started networking, I noticed, because you reached out to me probably in 2020, I think you came by. I was at Cody's office there in Tempe, Arizona, and you knocked on my door. So you're knocking on people's door that have been doing deals.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the business too. And like when I started in 2018, we didn't have this many meetups. Like now everybody has a meetup.
Yep.
And it's awesome. I love it. But back then it was like you either paid for a program, and then everybody, like Cody would host a quarterly meetup that you paid for. But now there's so many meetups, and so you just go network and
that's
find
big.
people.
That's great advice for people watching that want to get in. Like, check out your local meetups. Check out, like, a lot of them are free to go to, and you just meet people that are doing deals and learn too from those meetups.
Right. Yeah. And you learn from the meetups, but you get people's numbers, and the biggest thing is bringing them value. Like
100%. Everyone on my podcast has talked about someone new. You have to bring value because we're already doing deals. We don't really, no offense, but like we don't need someone that's new that, they have to bring value.
100%. And I get it. I'm sure you get it all the time. where people will be like, hey, can I take you out to lunch? Can I pick your brain?
Oh my God, I hate that question.
Oh my gosh. It's like, dude, if I want to get my own lunch, I can pay for my own
lunch is too expensive. Like, we're going to stay 44.
Exactly.
I don't eat lunch. Seriously, a lot of times I'm just going, and like, it's just, there's better ways, guys, to, if you want to meet Tino, Brent, whoever, I mean, there's myself, there's a lot better ways. No one's picking anyone's brain.
Yeah, like perfect example, Flip, you're an amazing buyer in Arizona. You have Airbnbs. You don't have the time to go source some of your own deals, though, right? You're busy. You're a busy guy. If you're a newbie, go to Flip, tell him, hey, what are you looking for specifically? And then you have the time. You don't have the money. You don't have the education, but you can leverage your time to go find Flip deals. You sell him a deal, and he may pour into
I would
you.
be so impressed if someone knocked on my door, because that's what I did in the beginning. I knocked on people that I wanted to be like their door and asked them if I could help or bring them some value. But
100%.
like, there's not enough of that. Like, I get like DMs on my Instagram, can we add you to my buyers list? I'm like, I'm not gonna look at it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's got to be a better way, a better catch to approach people already doing it. And like you said, hey, can I come by your office and, meet with you for 10 minutes? 10 minutes turns into a half hour. Like,
yeah.
It opens doors when you personally reach out to people that, like Pace always used to say, people want to work with people they know and like. So it's so true.
100%. So yeah, that's like the biggest advice I would give is just like figure out how to bring value to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, you could reach out. It's so amazing nowadays, Tino, with social media, because you could instantly reach out to whoever you want to be in contact with. They may not hit you up that week, that month, but if you stay in touch, stay persistent, figure out a tricky way in the door, just add some sort of value, they're going to meet with you.
Right, exactly. And then the number one thing in like wholesaling is persistence. And like being just in success in general, like if you just never give up, like if this is really truly something you want to do, and whether that's getting a hold of Flip or doing wholesaling, it's just being persistent,
That is key. And we all have fears, so you have to figure out what's holding you back, because we'll make up excuses, limiting beliefs, I have a family, I have to pay the bill. I mean, which is valid, but if you really want to do something, you have to step into it and make it happen, because
100%.
No one's going to wake you up and say, hey, Tino, get out there and door knock.
Right, exactly.
It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
So you really got to want to do it. So after that 18 months, I remember when I first met you, you were working with Pace Morby.
I was, yeah.
He hired you on, or how did you find about his job opportunity?
So it's funny that we were talking about this topic of bringing value. When I was door knocking, I had a few contracts that fell through, but I went to one of Pace Morby's meetups he was talking about creative finance. And I didn't understand creative finance at the time, but I kept rapport with those sellers that I had to cancel on. And I thought, okay, maybe they weren't a good cash deal, but if I bring him to Pace, maybe he can close on it. So I ended up reaching out to him on his DMs and said, hey, I have a couple sellers that I converted back in the day. They don't work as cash. Can you come close them as creative? I don't want to make anything on it. I just want to see you do it, if that's okay. And he was like, yeah, of course, but I'm going to pay you. Like, if these end up being deals. And so we worked a couple of those together.
But that's value. That's something that not everyone's going to trust in themselves enough to say. And it wasn't about the money for you either. It was about probably getting to meet Pace, getting to know him, see what he's doing.
Get around him,
Yep.
watch him work, learn. Like, it was a learning process.
For you guys that don't know Pace Morby is with Jamil now. They do an A&E show. Couple killers in Arizona, throughout the country. I mean, those guys are doing amazing things.
Yeah.
So that must have been quite the experience, not only to be around him, but then you eventually started working for him, right?
Yeah, so that led into a ride-along, and then during the ride-along, we kind of just talked, and he was like, hey, why don't you come work for me for a little while? And so at that time, it was Cody and Pace doing tons of deals. They're crushing it.
Not Cody Sperber,
Cody Barton.
Barton, okay.
Cody Barton and Pace were together. They we're doing deals together, and then I was the first acquisition hire that stuck around for a long period of time, and then I ended up almost becoming like a sales manager. So I went out and brought on some people and trained them, and
did that help back in the Amway business, learning the self-development and learning how to build teams? Did that translate to what you ended up doing with Pace?
It did, yeah. I mean, I was looking for certain personalities, and I was blessed with the fact that Pace had a lot of people reaching out to him already, asking to work for him. So he would direct them over to me, and this sounds bad, but I would purposely ignore them to see which ones would actually follow up with me and say, hey, I reached out to you a week ago.
That's so big. Yeah. Follow up, and it goes back to that number one thing you were mentioning, persistence.
Yeah. And so I would ghost them, and they would follow up. And one guy actually, crazy story, I ghosted him for so long that he ended up skip tracing my address, called me, and pretended to try and buy my house. And I go, you're pretty good. Like, who do you work for? And he's like, actually, I've been trying to work for you, but you never call me back. And so I ended up hiring him. I ended up hiring him.
That's a creative way, like you did with Pace, to provide value. Because it's outside the box.
Yeah.
Like most people, like, he's ghosted me. I'll try somewhere else. But if they really want it.
Exactly, and that was my way of like weeding people out. Like I figured if you weren't persistent enough to follow up about a position that you want, you're probably not persistent enough to follow up with sellers to close deals.
Because let's face it, it's not an easy business. Wholesaling is hard, but if you get the systems, you get the right people in place, it makes it much easier, the process.
Oh my gosh, so much easier. I say this a lot. It's not a hard business to understand. It's a very simple business, but it's a very hard business to work, especially if you're direct to seller, because it's talking to a lot of people, hearing no all day. You have to perfect. The better you are at sales, the better you'll convert. Mm-hmm. But it's very mind-numbing sometimes, and if you don't have the mental fortitude for it, direct to seller is not for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So persistence and grit is those are the two things that you need.
Because let's face it, you may not get paid for 18 months, right? Like
Hopefully not.
Hopefully that is not your experience out there, guys, when you start wholesaling. But it's so interesting, the concept, once you open the door, guys, once you do your first Airbnb, you get your second, third, it's just opening that door makes life, it just expands from there.
Yep. It's that proof of concept.
Proof of concept, belief, too, that, hey, I could do this.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the one, like I always tell this to people, if you can afford to pay for coaching, which there's price ranges on different programs, but either way, like if you're looking to get into something and you're really truly devoted and you believe in yourself, step one is believing in yourself.
100%.
Having the true confidence that you can perform. But two, find a coach, find somebody that's doing it at a high level, and get in their world.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's so simple, but I think people make it hard in their brain, like, oh, he's not going to want to talk to me. But you have to approach that mentor, that person, because guess what? You're going to have to sell yourself all the time, no matter what you do.
100%.
So.
And what you're paying for in a coach is the 18 months that I struggled, right? So, like, if I don't have a coaching program yet, I'm assuming one day I will.
We do. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but, like, you're paying for cutting the curve. You're paying for all the failures that they went through, and they're going to save you all the time and the headache and the failures to get you straight into producing.
Yeah,
income.
Yeah. I mean, it could translate, like, I'm sure you had baseball coaches growing up, whatever sport you played, whether you're a pitcher, you have outfielder coaches, like you have coaches, mentors, and it's the same thing in the business world. I have coaches, mentors that work with me now, and it just makes life that much easier.
100%.
Yeah, because like you said, I've been through 23 years, and I've experienced pretty much A to Z as far as fires, blow-ups. How do you put them out? What do you do?
Yeah.
Like, you can't crumble. You just got to figure them out.
And the awesome thing with you is you've also seen the recessions.
Yeah.
So, like, right now, everyone's kind of, like, up and they're just nervous. And I talked to Templeton earlier, and he's awesome, and he gave me his insight. And so I'm trying to pick brains with people that are smarter than me while also providing value, right? But you've weathered the storms.
And I wouldn't have without my mentor, Jerry. Like, he had been through 3 recessions prior to the financial collapse. So he's now in his 80s, but him and I owned a ton of property together. I mean, still, there was many sleepless nights because we lost, I'd say, almost everything. But, like, just having him there with me, like, he's a man of faith, man of God. So I mean, you don't know what to do when your world just stops and you lose everything.
Yeah.
And I went through a divorce that time. I mean, that was literally the hardest part of my life. So if I could give you guys any advice, it would be definitely surround yourself with mentors, whether it's business, church, whatever. Mentors can change your life instead of you trying to figure out yourself, or me. They've been through stuff.
Yeah.
Hey guys, quick announcement. I just launched my new Passive Income Accelerator course. In this course, you'll learn how I built my Airbnb portfolio to 10 properties and growing while amassing $3,000 to $5,000 per property per month. If you want to learn more, go to piaaccelerator.com/go and sign up for the early bird special. And now back to the podcast.
Yeah, and you're a man of faith, so you'll appreciate this. Like, what God likes community, right? So, like, when I don't know if this is gonna be controversial, but like when the enemy's attacking you, what the enemy wants you to do is go into seclusion by yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so when things are getting rough, the more you can gather around like-minded people that are at the same level or higher, you're going to survive that storm a lot better.
Yeah. Because I've shut down a few times, and that's because I didn't ask for help. And that's when you know you have a problem, when you're like, oh, I could do it myself, and then you totally avoid everything. You have that avoidance, and it doesn't get better unless you work on it getting better. That's just how life is. And
100%.
And we're hit with challenges all day in real estate. I mean, deals blow up. Now we got a recession, which I'm seeing as an opportunity right now,
100%.
especially with the Airbnb and what we do, because we don't have to pay like deep wholesale, but it's helping me get better buys right now.
Yeah. I'm sure you're loving it right now, because what we're seeing on the wholesale side is 2 months ago, not that we do this, but we saw wholesalers, we call them baby wholesalers, locking up properties at like 80% of ARV, and then they would sell it to a hedge fund at 90% of ARV. That's great, but now the hedge funds are not buying like they used to. So a lot of wholesalers...
So 80%, Tino, for people that don't... ARV is after repair value. So say a property's worth... $100,000, they were paying $80,000, right?
Yeah, they were paying $80,000, and then the hedge fund would come in and close at $90,000.
Okay.
You know this from being in the game so long. Back when I started in 2020 or 2018, if a property's worth $100,000, you have to buy that like $65,000, $70,000 to sell it. And so now we're going back to those times where buyers are like putting their hands up, like, I'm not buying right now because we don't have enough data. But I will buy it if it's 65 cents on the dollar because I'm safe. I know I'm safe. So, there's a lot of turmoil in the air right now, and I think...
Is that because of, inflation, the media? People buy into a lot of that, and they're scared. They're scared right now because what's going on, I'm sure. And there's uncertainty too, right? We don't know. Like, you could talk to the smartest economist, and there's still a lot of uncertainty what's happening.
I think that's the biggest thing, is it's the uncertainty. Like, we saw that inflation's at 9.1%, right? So now we're like, okay, are the Feds going to increase the rates again? We don't know. But flippers are holding back because they don't have enough data to say, okay, well, what are these inflations? What are these interest rates doing to the comps? Because it hasn't been here long enough.
Right.
So that's why everyone's kind of like on hold And so, yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens.
I mean, I could give you guys an example of one, Tino, in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was going to pick up for an Airbnb. We don't have anything right now in Scottsdale, but my buddy Nick, he came to me. It was his grandma's house, and at the time, prior to leaving in, we went to Coronado in June, so like a few weeks before that, he's like, this home is $750. He showed me all the data. I'm like, that makes sense. I see it. About a week later, 4 homes in that same little pocket get listed for like $100,000 less. Oh. So I was almost ready to, him and I were putting the paperwork together before Coronado. I didn't, and like a week later, like I said, the market in that little pocket, they put those homes for sale, and so it changes everything.
Yeah, it changes your comps, and so
because you have a number of deals I know locked in.
Mm-hmm. So we have contract. 11 in escrow right now. Some of them were going to hedge funds. They are no longer going to hedge funds, but we buy a lot of our stuff 50% of ARV. So
that's amazing. First of all,
thank you. We're doing a lot of pre-foreclosure, probate, tax liens, list pendants. So like we do go after a very niche list, which allows us to get deals deep. So we're okay right now. We're not
right, because I was going to ask you, like, if some wholesalers I know right now are going back to the sellers and asking them for a better discount than their reduction.
Yeah.
Have you guys had to do that yet, or?
Thankfully, we haven't, and we try not to ever do that. Obviously, if the market shifts and you can't sell the house, and you have to, but we usually try and get it pretty deep off the jump, just because we know that's going to maximize our profits. I mean, 2 months ago, we were buying them at 50% ARV, selling them at 90% ARV, so we were making really good money.
Yeah, your spreads.
They were awesome. So we just kept doing what we were doing, and thank God that, like, now that the market has shifted, everyone's like, oh, is it going to shift? Like, it's already shifted. We're still in a good spot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
In regards to real estate in general, Tino, there's so many different niches. You mentioned your niche as far as what you attack in wholesale. With real estate, people could do land, they could do fix and flip, they could do wholesale, Airbnb, which we love right now.
Yeah.
Like how did you decide? I know you saw Cody's ad, but what would you recommend new people just wanting to get into the real estate investment end of the game?
So my preach is always, I'm glad that I learned wholesale first, and I'm glad that I learned sales first, because I will always be able to source my own deals. Now that
that's big.
Yeah, and now that I can source my own deals at 50% of ARV, well, so out of the 11 that we have in escrow, 2 of them we may take down ourselves and just hold as either Airbnbs or rentals, because we do buy them so deep. So my recommendation is always, like, and I'm biased because I learned wholesale first, but I think you learn wholesale first, learn sales first, and then it's kind of like a graduation process into, okay, now I know how to source the deal, I can maximize it and do a flip on it, I can maximize it and flip it and then sell it to myself and BRRRR. I can...
A lot of different options when you control the property.
Exactly. So that's always my recommendation, but you have a great program. There's a lot of great programs out there where if that's like your niche that you want to start out on, then I would go for it.
Yeah, definitely. And whatever you do, guys, I would give yourself at least a year to really dig deep into it. You're going to get discouraged, right? Everyone in the beginning, I've been discouraged. I'm sure you go home at nights when you first started, you're like, that deal I thought I had this. And, you're this close. It just seems like that happens. And then all of a sudden you hit that one. I'm sure you'll always remember your very first wholesale deal.
I do. Yeah. I even remember, I can't remember the exact address, but I can tell you how to drive there right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's just being patient. And then the first year, there's one of 2 ways you can do it. You can either go get in somebody's world and work for them and learn, which a lot of people do, or 2, you pay for the mentorship, and get somebody to pour into you for the year, do a couple deals. I would continue to always pay for a mentor. Like you pay for higher level mentors than I do. Like I want to pay for somebody's time to sit down and coach me as well. And so, number one is like always investing in yourself.
And always bet on yourself. I know it's hard when you just start out too. You're like, I've never done this, but like for me, it's just, if you have that self-motivation drive, you could figure it out. Well, you could help yourself by going to a mentor and getting around people already doing it. That's the biggest thing. Don't try to do it on yourself, but you can, but it's going to take you 5 times as long to like get in that world of other investors that have done hundreds of deals, that have been through the battles.
100%. It's like back in grade school, right? Like you're essentially paying somebody to copy off of their cheat sheet, right?
That's a good analogy.
So instead of like going and trying,
or the Cliff Notes, you got the Cliff Notes.
Instead of failing on your own, you got Flip saying, "Hey, look, I'm showing you what I did wrong, what I did right. This is how I'm crushing it.
Yeah,
this is how we do it.
Yeah,
here it is."
And you do that, and guess what? Before long, you got your first Airbnb, and then the doors just open and it moves forward. So we're starting to get back to pop-ups, which is exciting here in Arizona. So we do have a pop-ups where we show people like the deal, the project, the vision before we even start. So we'll lock down the deal, and then we'll invite people out to ask questions, question and answers. We'll break down the numbers we paid, and it's a great way to learn, guys, and also to network too, because you never know who you're going to meet at the pop-up, because they're usually a lot smaller than meetups, like 20 people, swing by, and it's just,
that's actually the better.
Yeah.
So like my personal opinion, I think it's better to go to pop-ups than meetups, because at meetups everything's so congested and you've got big names there and everyone's trying to get around the big name.
Right.
At pop-ups, there's one person, which is the big name, who's hosting the pop-up, but then it's more intimate, so you can get into conversation. You can get into, hey, how do you do what you do and how can I bring you value? So I think pop-ups are actually better.
Yeah, definitely. So if you guys are in Arizona, come out to one of our pop-ups. We'll be having those once a month now. So it's fun and it's exciting that things are opening up, because having that pandemic with nothing was like,
the 2-week cut the curve ended up a 2-year cut the curve.
Oh my goodness, exactly. It did. But listen, it got me in social media. Like, holy cow, Pace is. Him and I had lunch at the golf course here, and he's like, Flip, you know everyone in Arizona, but you don't know anyone. So that's how I kind of hopped on social.
Yeah.
So I opened up an Instagram, and then I started doing my Facebook Messenger, and I think, like that first month, I had 3 deals on Facebook Messenger. I was like,
awesome.
This stuff really works. Like, so you're in the business, but you have to stay above it. You have to adjust to the trends, the markets. Obviously, social is the way to go.
Yeah, social. I mean, you see all the great gurus or durus doing it. Like Grant Cardone is amazing at it. Pace is amazing at it. Jamil's amazing. You're amazing. So like, if you're not doing social, you're missing out on money.
And you're gonna start like doing a lot of content.
I'm trying, yeah. So like my content's actually gone up. I've started paying for a team to help me with it. And so like the editing and all that stuff.
You have to. Why would you want? You could try. Again, we're talking about why would you try to do your edits? Do that. Spend some money. Do what you do best. Wholesale. Build teams. Let the experts do their stuff. And
exactly.
So that's
stick to your strength and outsource the rest.
Yep.
Right. And so yeah, my social media is just Tino Luna on Instagram. Actually, all my platforms are just Tino Luna, and I just, my thing is like pushing out as much free good content as possible.
Value. Yeah.
Value driven, and hopefully people learn from it. And if they want to bring deals, I'm happy to do deals with people.
Absolutely.
So.
Are you in other states, or is it all Arizona right now?
Mainly Arizona. I did do Texas. I had a flip in California actually with a buddy out there in Joshua Tree. So I only did one flip in California.
Shout out to Bryce. We just had Bryce on our podcast 6. He's doing a ton of Airbnbs, Joshua Tree.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's Killing it out there.
If I figured out a way to capitalize, I should have kept that as an Airbnb because it was right in Joshua Tree. It was a gorgeous little house, and
He may have bought it.
Did you
wholesale it or fix
No,
and
I
flip
fixed
it?
I fixed and flipped it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so primarily Arizona. I do a little bit in Texas. We're gonna expand here shortly, but you know this. So when I set my systems and processes up, I scaled too quickly for where my processes were. So I started in Arizona, and then we said, okay, cool, now let's go market in Texas and Florida and California. And we did well, but it was like we were stumbling over ourselves. So then we came back in, brought it back in. Now we're setting up all the systems and processes properly before rescaling again.
Digging deep, getting those roots, and then expanding them. That's what I'm personally doing with the Airbnbs. I wanted to go through a couple of years here in Arizona. Guess what? Now we're moving to other states because we have systems and processes. Awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, that's our next step is scaling and growing, and we'll see what happens in the next 6 months, but that's where we're headed next.
That's exciting. Yeah. So what have you done Airbnbs? I don't think we've talked about that.
I don't. So I want to, and that's the process of like graduating, if you will, in the investment world. At least through my eyes, is like I started wholesaling. I flipped last year. We did 23 houses.
That's amazing. 23 your first year?
Yeah, it was our first year. We went really wide, and shout out to Templeton for helping me like source a lot of that.
Templeton's a local Arizona guy, great guy.
He's amazing.
Very knowledgeable.
Super knowledgeable. He helped me with financing, and what I mean by that is like a lot of our money in 2021 was 100% financing. So it allowed us to scale and do 23 flips, you know, and we weren't so cash heavy on down payments and all that stuff. And then now we're primarily doing a lot of
people watching, they're like, how do you get 100% financing? Well, surround yourselves with Templetons of the world, the experts who know people who know how to set these things up. I've done those before, and they work, but you have to know where to go to do that.
Yeah. And that's all networking.
It's the network. Yeah.
And again, I brought Templeton value. We were selling him a lot of deals in 2021, and then he, you know, when it was just a conversation that came up, and I wasn't like asking him for it. We were talking about flips, and he's like, dude, like we do a ton of deals together. Let me line you up with my guy, and that was it. And so,
and that's the thing. The network is your net worth, right? Like.
I can't say that enough. And it sounds like one of those, like, it's funny when you start in business and you hear these, like, cliche sayings. Mm-hmm. They sound super cliche to you.
Super cheesy, right?
Yeah, but then when you, like, take advantage of them and you go through it, then you're like, man, that makes so much sense. Like, your network is literally your net worth. Like, if you don't network with people, doors just don't open like they're supposed to.
Yeah. And one of the things I would say as a wholesaler, that personal relationship, I'm still kind of old school. Like if Johnny Williams, some of those guys, Troy, those guys who have now moved on to bigger things, but like they were always very relational. Mm-hmm. So they would, you know, I would be their top guy, and the reason they liked me is because if I committed to it, they knew it was done.
That's awesome.
So that was the thing. You build that handful of wholesalers, they know Flip will do the deal, so they don't have to worry about, is it going to close? Am I going to get paid? And
there's so much of that right now.
I'm sure.
Oh my gosh! Sure. And last couple of years was the idea of like daisy chaining, right?
Yep.
And so that's why I did a lot of deals with, or still do a lot of deals with.
Because you knew he was your go-to pretty much.
I knew
it's like if I'm going to send it to Templeton, he's going to close it. Like,
yeah, same thing with you. Like
get it done.
If I send it to you and you say yes, we sign an assignment. On closing day, nothing funny's going on. Yeah. Everything goes as according.
Again, it's relational business, and it makes life so much easier.
100%.
Yeah. So, in the next year or two, are you thinking you're going to step into the short term?
Yeah. So, I do have the luxury of understanding creative finance. I think when this shift fully develops, we're going to see a lot of opportunity for creative finance. And so when we start taking down these properties, like the two that we're going to take down out of the ones that are in escrow, they'll probably turn into Airbnbs if if they're in Airbnb locations and stuff like that. Because that's one thing I still have to learn, which I'll probably go to you in your program, is understanding what really truly makes an Airbnb. I know location is a big thing, and close to like hospitals. When I was a nurse, I used to travel, and a lot of them would be Airbnbs.
We've done really well traveling nurses during the pandemic.
Yeah. And so I know location has a big part of it. So anyway, that's the next step, is holding the rentals. And the best disposition strategy for cash flow is Airbnb if you can accomplish it. If not, then traditional renting. So Airbnb is the next step that I want to master.
Love it, love it. Yeah, because again, with the creative financing too, we talk a lot about arbitrage and creative financing. That's where you don't have to come in with a big down payment, and you don't have to actually close on the property. So that's a good strategy to acquire and scale into the Airbnb business.
Yeah, yeah.
Sweet. So I'd love to help you and show you once you're ready.
Again, value driven, right? I have a bunch of deals that Flip might want to buy, and somehow we can work together.
Yeah. And you always start there, like, let's try one deal, see how we work. I've always been a firm believer in, like, I know people get excited. Hey, I could provide you, how many deals you want to do this year? I could provide you 30. Let's just try one.
Yes.
See how we do together. We'll partner, we'll do that and then move forward from there. And that seems to be the best route. And some of my best business partners, we did that, and then we grew, together.
It's I learned that actually from Paces like that. He calls it dating for a while. You date, see how you guys do, and then you talk about long-term stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Sweet. So we're gonna wrap up Tino, the podcast here. One thing I heard you say over and over was being persistent in whatever form of real estate investing you're in, because again, it's not, what was that? You said it's not hard.
It's not hard. It's very simple business, but it's hard to work.
Yeah, that's facts. And once you get it, though, I feel like the doors, like we're talking, the floodgates just
they open. Yeah. And I think that comes with anything. Like, some people will get lucky and get quick success, but I'm a firm believer in God, and so I think that I had a purpose for going 18 months with no deals, because now if I do get into the coaching space or whatever, I can show people like, hey, I went 18 months doing this, struggling. You don't have to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a rhyme and reason and a purpose for everything, but
and you're still at it. You're probably better than ever. I would probably say 2022. It's been your biggest year ever, I would imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 2022 has been awesome. Like,
4 years in the game, and that's the thing with this. You could once. So you had 2 years no business, and now you're like.
Yeah. So 2018 to 2020, no business. 2020 had a good year. 2021 was life-changing for me, and the fact that we had flips, we had wholesaling, so like I had never made that much money. But really 2022, like everything came together. At least the first 7 months that we've been in, we've been dominating on door knocking and getting very big spreads, and we're still flipping. And so definitely blessed to say that this is our best year ever.
Love it. So where can people reach out to you again, Tino?
Yeah, so it's just Tino Luna on all platforms: Instagram, Tino Luna; Facebook, Tino Luna. I don't work the TikTok as much as I should, but it's Tino Luna. So add me, shoot me a DM, ask me any questions.
Are you doing any meetups or anything now? Or
I don't have any meetups yet. I did do a couple free webinars on my social media. Actually, you know Ramon Martinez?
Yep.
Yeah, so Ramon and I and Templeton Soul Pod partnered up on a webinar. We had a little over 100 people come out, and we just kind of did the wholesaling 101 for 3 hours. So we may do more of those. If you follow me on Instagram, I'll put that on my story when those come up. But no in-person meetups yet.
Gotcha. Sweet. Well, I learned a ton. I hope you guys did. This is Cut the Curb, episode 8 with Tino Luna. Thanks for being my guest, brother, and we'll
appreciate you.
Yep.
Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome,
Thank you guys so much. Hopefully you guys picked up something.
Peace.